Welcome and thank you for being here today. My name is Catherine O'Donnelly and I have a powerful tool to share with you that will transform the way you work with others, not only in the workplace, but in your other important relationships too. I'm sharing today what I believe to be the number one skill for everyone in business, and even more so for you in an executive support position. In fact, I'd go so far as to say that it is a skill that is needed by everyone, not just in the business world, but to enhance every relationship in our lives. Knowing me, knowing you is about increasing our self-awareness and developing our ability to understand, work with, and get the best from every working relationship by understanding others too. Firstly, let's start with a brief introduction to me. Over the past 40 years, I've worked with thousands of people, collaborating closely with CEOs, senior executives, and people at every level, from global corporations to tiny startups. The experience I've gained has been central in shaping the work that I do today as an executive and career coach, helping my clients from all over the world achieve their own success in their career and in their lives. Throughout this journey, I've discovered that certain skills consistently set apart those who succeed. And by that, I mean those who excel in managing up and advancing in their careers. My research over the years has proven time and time again that self and other awareness is key to getting on, to communicating well, and collaborating with others. This skill set differentiates those who thrive and succeed in their careers from those who struggle to get on in an always changing work environment. And I'm going to introduce you to a toolkit that I've found to be incredibly powerful in developing these critical abilities, enabling you to interact and influence others at a level that few ever achieve. This will be your key to not just supporting others, but enhancing your own professional journey and, importantly, future-proofing your career. Now, before we go on to the toolkit, I want to address the elephant that is in the room at the moment, and that is one of the biggest fears we have about our careers today is that our jobs will be taken over by AI. And whilst we're in no doubt at all about the fact that learning about and embracing AI is very important for us, and I know the next summit looks at this in detail, today we're talking about HI, that's human intelligence. And that's the skills that cannot be replicated, the ability to interact and influence on a human level. Today, I want you to start to recognize the value that you can bring to your business through your enhanced interactions with others and what it could mean for you to develop these skills even further. And whether you're at the start of your career or midpoint, or maybe working towards the end of your working life, remember, we're all works in progress. Learning new skills makes life interesting. We grow and we develop beyond our comfort zones, and we're in a position to be able to help others to develop these skills too. And when we enhance our skills, we can become more selective about the work that we take on, the people we choose to work with, and we become more sought after. So people recommend us to others and more opportunities become available. And I'd like you to take a moment to think about what's important to you and how does your current role match up to your ideal future role. And what we're looking at here is things like work-life balance, recognition and appreciation, personal growth and development, job security and stability, working in a positive work environment, meaningful work, autonomy and trust, personal connection with the executive you work with, variety and challenge in your role, and having a good balance between routine work and creative work. And if you think about that for a moment, How many of these would you say, on a scale of 1 to 10, are exactly where you would like them to be? Now imagine developing your relationships with others such that you become sought after and choose who you work with and how you work and the nature of the work you get to do. Because developing and applying self-awareness and other awareness is the first step to putting you in the top 5% of your profession. Now, let's get into the detail. Think about what it would be like if you could find a way of working that would mean that you weren't investing too much time trying to work around difficult people. Think about the time and the mental energy that's wasted through frustration and workaround strategies like over accommodating and trying to please, or even trying to avoid them, fearing confrontation and conflict, and having people overstep our boundaries. The DISC framework, which I'm talking about today, is a really powerful tool for understanding personality traits, communication styles, and workplace behaviours. It's also widely used by top companies to build team effectiveness. This very simple four-colour system is used by many different psychometric tools. You might recognise it as Deloitte's business chemistry, or the Insights tool, or Erickson's Colours, which is the theme of his very popular book, Surrounded by Idiots. The framework isn't about evaluating people's skills or about pigeonholing people. It's about having a better understanding of your natural preferences and behaviours. There's a real benefit in seeing our blind spots and realising that people do not think, behave, or feel the same way. Ultimately, the underlying goal here is to improve communication and connection. Most of us at some point will have taken online or magazine quizzes in the past, which tell us things like which friend's character we are most like, or what type of animal or chocolate bar we'd be. And whilst those quizzes reveal fun aspects of our personality, DISC offers insights that go beyond curiosity, giving you practical and actionable advice that can help improve your job prospects, your communication skills, and even help with salary negotiation. It's important to highlight that DISC is not about labeling, it's about understanding and adapting to different communication styles. So let's dive into the DISC framework, starting with 4 lists of describing words, each of these associated with a colour. So here we have the first column, dominant. So you can see a bright red colour there. The words that fall under that heading are confident, decisive, results-oriented, competitive, assertive, ambitious, and risk-taker. Okay, those are very strong words, and those define a particular personality style. I'm not going to read through all of the words there, but you can see, you get the gist from me reading those first words of a very strong, driven personality style. In the second column, we have yellow, which is I for influence, and the descriptive words there are sociable, enthusiastic, persuasive and charming, optimistic and talkative, energetic and inspiring. Okay, so very different from the words we used, the red words, which were the dominant words. We then have a look at the green column, which is steadiness. The words there are reliable, patient, calm, supportive, sincere, and a team player, consistent, cooperative, and a good listener. Different words again. And finally, in our fourth column, we have blue, which is conscientiousness. And the descriptive words we have there are analytical, precise, detail-focused, systematic and disciplined, cautious, thorough, and quality-driven. When you look at those 4 columns of words, think about which group of words best describes you in your work environment. Is it red for dominant? Is it yellow for influence? S for steadiness, or C for conscientiousness. There's no right or wrong. There's no better or worse. What we're looking for here is the approach we take to the jobs that we do, or we could say the lens that we unconsciously use to approach people and tasks. It's usually quite a simple matter to identify which colour type is mostly you, which would be your primary, and then which one would become a close second. So you may say, I'm mostly green, but I can also see some blue traits and qualities in the work that I do. Or I'm mostly yellow, but there is some green, and that's probably secondary to my natural style, which would be yellow. And for me, as an example, my primary color is yellow, which is the I, and my secondary color is D, which is the red. So primarily somebody who is engaging, collaborative, warm, people-oriented, and then my secondary characteristics are strong-willed, self-assured, fast-paced, results-oriented. We might recognize in looking at these lists that people we get on best with have the same disc style as we do, and that those with other styles might be a little bit harder to get along with. And it's fascinating to see how this works in group situations, where we can observe each type responding to the same situation in different ways, but equally valid ways. And the example I'm going to use here is a situation at work where a project deadline is approaching. If you are red, and that's the D, that's the person who takes charge, who sets priorities and pushes the team to meet the deadline. They may make a quick decision to make sure that project stays on track, sometimes at the cost of detail or collaborating with others. And they will say things like, just focus on the main tasks and get this done. We don't have time to worry about minor details. So that's their response to this impending deadline. If you're a yellow, then what your approach there is going to be is to motivate and encourage the team. You want to create a positive and energetic environment and try to rally others around the goal. But the yellow can sometimes get distracted by ideas or discussions, and they'll be saying things like, come on team, we can do it. Let's keep the energy high and let's have some fun while we finish this. If you're green, which is the steadiness, so that is you keep calm, you support others in their tasks, you seek to maintain harmony and make sure that the team's morale remains high, even under pressure. And they'll say things like, let's keep a steady pace. We need to support each other. We're in this together and we'll get there. And then finally, if your traits are more blue, which is the conscientiousness, focusing on details and accuracy and making sure that all aspects of the project are covered, they might be worrying more about the quality if we speed up too much and the compliance, which maybe makes them double check the work they're doing quite frequently. And they're going to say things like, we need to make sure that every detail is correct before we submit it. Let's review everything one more time to ensure there are no mistakes. And you can see how those different approaches to getting things done mean that we can work together and bring out our strengths to achieve the result. When we look more closely at these disc types, we notice also that there are similarities. And in this table, what you see is that the red, the D, and the blue, which is the C, are more task focused, where the I, the yellow, and the S, which is green, are more people focused. Furthermore, the D and the I are fast paced, so you'll see them talking quickly, moving on quickly, and the S and the C are steadier paced. Also, the mode of operation, the D, the red and the yellow, the D and the blue, the C are going to be thinking about what they're doing. The I and the S are going to be engaging more in feelings and in how other people are interacting and how this might be impacting them. Next, what we're going to do is, for the purpose of this exercise, we're going to think about the disc type of our line manager or someone we work closely with. So going back to those characteristics, the D, the I, the S, and the C, the red, the yellow, the green, and the blue. Think about this person that you have in mind and which set of words, which colour best defines how they work, how they view the world. So for the purpose of this exercise, I want you to imagine that I am an executive assistant and I am a green, that's an S type. And I'm looking at these four types, and I think my manager is likely to be a red, a D type. So they're driven, they're decisive, they move fast, they pay a lot of attention to detail. Now we're going to have a look at how, now that I've got a knowledge of their type and how they work, how I can adapt my approach to working with them for better results. And this is what underlies managing up effectively. It's about knowing me and my type and knowing you and your type. It's about self-awareness and about other awareness. Because once we understand how others are internally programmed to work, we can adapt our own natural style and approach our interactions with them from a completely different and enhanced perspective. Now, it's usually at this point that people will say to me, why do I have to adapt? They're the difficult ones. Now, you'll have heard throughout life that we can't change other people, and we can't. I do agree with this. But what I've found, it's almost miraculous that when we change the way we interact with others, when we understand and appreciate their style, and we see the benefits of adapting our style to work with them, suddenly they start changing the way they work with us. So when we change the way we interact with someone in a positive way, we set a new precedent for that relationship. Our understanding and our acceptance of them and the way they work, and our willingness to be adaptable and flexible leads to enhanced working relationships. So instead of us seeing them as just difficult, we see them simply as different in their style of interaction. And I've personally seen relationships completely transform through this level of interpersonal understanding. And in the same way that we treat other people in our lives in different ways, we might speak differently, don't we, to our partners, our children, or our nephews and nieces, depending on their own style and their own preferences. We can apply that same flexibility to the people we work with and experience these transformative results. A friend of mine is a D, and I remember once asking him how he felt about something we were talking about. And I've just got this questioning stare in return. Feel? When I changed my wording and I asked him what he thought about it, I got a very clear response from him, almost in bullet points. Here's a practical demonstration of the disc tool in action. I've identified myself for the purpose of this exercise as primarily a green, that's an S disc type, and my manager as a red, that's the D type. And in my full disc report, and I'll talk a little bit more later on about how you can get your own disc report, but the full disc report provides you with tips and strategies so that you can work with different disc types. So as an S, a green, it's telling me how I can work with a red, a D type. What it tells me to do is to be brief and to the point. Communicating with D types, you need to focus on the main points and avoid overloading them with detail. We need to show confidence. We need to be assertive and confident in our recommendations and decisions if we want them to take us seriously. And we need to highlight efficiency because for a D, that is paramount. Emphasize how your suggestions or your actions will lead to quick, effective results. Now, I'll go through a little bit more because if you are a green, you might want to know how you might work with a yellow or another green. or a blue. So we'll talk a little bit about those as well. So if you're a green working with a yellow, so that's somebody who is sociable, enthusiastic, persuasive, and quite talkative. What you'll need to do there to really get them on board is to engage socially, maybe more socially than you would naturally. Start conversations with some light, friendly chat so that you're building rapport. Show enthusiasm, match their energy level, and show enthusiasm in your interactions with them. And be open to ideas, because eyes are ideas people. Listen actively and be open to brainstorming sessions, even if they seem less structured than you would ideally like. When you're working with a green, that's the S type. So that's somebody like yourself. If you're green and the person you're working with is a green, you're going to find that easier. So you're going to find that being supportive and cooperative with them will align well with your natural style. You'll want to foster a collaborative environment where you can work together. So encourage that teamwork and emphasize mutual support. And be patient. Allow time for them to process and for discussions and decisions, reinforcing a steady pace, because that's what the S types really appreciate. And finally, if you're an S, that's the green type, and you're working with blue, who are the conscientious types, what's really important here is that you're thorough and that you're accurate. So that's really doing your homework before you start those conversations. Provide them up front if you can, detailed information and data to support your points. Respect as well their need for precision. So they're not being difficult, it's what they need to be able to interact and to do their job well. So understand and appreciate their focus on accuracy and thoroughness, and be patient when they're asking you questions to try and get more information. And importantly, stay organized. Present your information to them in a structured, logical manner to align with their preferences as well. And what you'll find is that with the types that are different to you, you'll find that by adapting the way you work, you will get the results you need and you'll be enhancing your communication with them. Now, remember, this talk is just a quick snapshot to show you one way that the tool can be used to enhance your working relationships. And it's really just the tip of the iceberg, because the full report includes things like graphs to visually represent your disc profile. One graph showing how you naturally behave when you're not consciously adapting your style. And that's your instinctive or your true personality. Another graph shows how you behave in a work environment. And it might show as well, if you're having to adapt quite a lot to the ways of working with the people you're working with, that will show in your second graph. It will also show your strengths and some of the limitations of your own style. So it could highlight some of your natural strengths, such as being decisive or being empathetic, and then some potential limitations or challenges, like maybe being very blunt or overly blunt or resistant to change. It can also highlight your communication style. So whether you are direct and to the point, which would be the red, or friendly and engaging for the yellow. It will also highlight some of your motivators and stressors. So what motivates you, like perhaps achievement or teamwork, and what might stress you, such as lack of control or conflict. It would also give you some indications as to what your preferred work environment is. So where are you most productive and comfortable? So a person with a high S might prefer a stable, predictable environment, whilst a high D might thrive in a fast-paced, competitive setting. Building skill sets and future-proofing your career is important to you. The DISC framework is the first step to building your self-awareness and helping you excel in your role. Thank you.